Look, we're going to talk to Harold the H. Ark, Ark. It's 3 arcs.
Oh, sorry.
Harold the H.
Ark, Ark, Ark.
Oh, Damien, you
need Damo
should
that.
have
You
taught
really do.
him that. No, Zach, you're doing a good job. Let's talk to Harold now.
All right.
He's our historian. He's going to tell us a story about the amazing life and times of Ipswich's Henry Foley from the 1840s. He opened the pub, cavorted with convicts, employed a raving lunatic. I wasn't around then, and much more. How are you, Harold?
Fantastic, Danny. It's a bit cold, but I'm excited to tell you
How cold? It was 5 when I got here this morning. What do you reckon it is now?
Oh, well, where I am, it'd have to be not much more than that, because it's certainly not warming up yet.
The Ipswich Cup's on today, and there'll be a bit of heat getting around the track there with the girls in stilettos till they've had too many.
Well, yeah, that's right. And today's story's even got a... It does go to the Ipswich races a little bit too.
Well, let's talk about Henry Foley.
Yeah, look, history's amazing, Danny. I tell you that every week, especially in Ipswich, because here's one man, he lives such an action-packed life, and yet I bet you've never heard of him.
Never.
Henry Foley, no, he arrived in Ipswich in the 1840s, back in the dark days when we were still part of New South Wales. And in 1849, Foley opened a new hotel called the Travellers' Home here in Ipswich. It was quite commodious with 5 bedrooms, 3 parlours, bar and tap, detached kitchen, servants' room, and a 6-stall stable. And it was well located on Nicholas Street, right next door to the government undertaker. Now, Foley employed as his cook a raving lunatic called Patrick Fahey. Now, Fahey was better known as Paddy the Horse. And Paddy proved to be totally useless and cooked nothing. Foley refused to pay his wages, so Paddy bolted. Foley took the horse to court, had him charged as breaching the Hired Servants Act, and he was incarcerated for 7 days.
Poor horse.
Now, the following year, Foley himself was fined £2 for breaches of the Licensed Publicans Act. And early in 1941, he eventually sold the Travellers' Home, having been a publican in Ipswich for less than 2 years. But as life goes on, you see, later that same year, Foley was arrested, charged for the willful murder of his wife.
Wow.
Now, her body was found floating in the Bremer River. She had a cut on her forehead, several other wounds, and, well, here's listeners' discretion advised, her intestines were grossly protruding from the body. She'd been sliced open. Now, Foley was seen violently quarrelling with her before the murder. But he got off on a technicality. You see, that's because the chief witness against him was contradicted when it was found that the quarrel had not taken place the day of the murder as stated, but rather the day before.
Wow.
So a little bit of a technicality there. But in 1858, Foley was again arrested when he ran out on the Ipswich racecourse and threw his hat at the horses in disgust, as we all want to do most of the time.
That was Paul
and in
Tully.
this case, he was fined £2 and 10 shillings under the Vagrants Act. Now, Queensland officially separated from New South Wales in 1859, and it seems Foley had something to say about it because he pleaded guilty to using obscene language and was fined £3. Now, the same year, Foley's daughter married the sole survivor of the Hornet Bank massacre, and that was up at the Dawson River north of Miles. That's when the groom's mother, 4 sisters, 3 brothers, a tutor and 2 employees were raped and murdered in horrible fashion while he was visiting Ipswich. Now, Foley's son-in-law then infamously embarked on a lifelong trail of revenge. But in 1861, Foley pleaded guilty to drunkenness and was fined 5 shillings. Now, his life up to that point, as you can see, was just full of action. But he's just not in the history books. And so how did he come to Ipswich? Well, that's really interesting because Henry Foley was quite possibly a convict who was transported for 7 years and landed in Van Diemen's Land in 1836.
Wow.
He was given a conditional pardon 5 years later and headed north and became an Ipswich policeman. What else would a convict become? In 1847, the new Constable Foley made a name for himself when he was the arresting officer in a murder on Union Street in Ipswich, in which one convict was savagely bashed by another convict. It was tough days back then as well as today in Ipswich. And in 1848, Constable Foley was again the arresting officer when he tracked down an escaped convict. But his fall from grace came at the end of that same year, in 1848. You see, Constable Foley was accompanying from Ipswich to Brisbane 3 men who were committed for trial on a charge of willful murder.
Right.
But when the party arrived in Brisbane, before delivering them up, Foley and another constable took their prisoners into a public house to drink.
Yeah.
They all enjoyed a night out on the public purse. Both the constables and the prisoners were in a state of utter intoxication when they eventually arrived at the watch house. The principal man in the alleged murder was unable to stand, and the constable with Foley was actually asleep out in the street. Anyway,
nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, Harold.
Yeah, nothing's changed, and unfortunately for Henry Foley, that was the end of his Ipswich police career. And as I said earlier, he then opened a pub, cavorted with convicts, employed a raving lunatic, charged with murdering his wife. His daughter married a massacre survivor. All that after he came out and became a New South Wales policeman. Danny, isn't Ipswich history fantastic?
It's not it. Mate, but you know how to build a story. What about our favourite girls that listen with the young bloke? What's his name? Josh.
Oh, Jacob. Yeah,
Jacob.
Well, they're listening. Jacob, Rebecca, and Sophia. But also, did you know Craig, the Muddy Creek picker, he's touring Europe at the moment, and he's sending photos over for History Out There.
History.
And hopefully you'll be doing an Arc video for you. It's a Muddy Creek picker.
We want him to arc. We want the girls to arc up and get on there and do arc, and be, flapping their arms along the... I don't care if you like it, Zach. So how do we find these stories and all the other stories and put something with their arcing onto the Facebook site?
Yes, you can go to all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that. But go to read the stories, go to online to historyoutThere.com.
And don't forget to tell your friends to listen to Harold the H. Peacock at this time, about 8:10. Coming up next, we have got Jack Sim with the 50th anniversary of the major escape from Bogger Jail, and then Glenn from Oz Capture Snake Relocations. And we were chasing Pauline Hanson. I will get Pauline on this program. I'm going to ask her a lot of tough questions, and I'm going to talk to her about crocodile tears next week, 8:22. Thanks a lot, Harold the H.